Okay, I hope you had fun learning how to make sourdough bread and a little bit more about gut health. So now we're on to part two. You have your beautiful fermented first rise, your bulk rise. You've let it sit for at least 5 to 8 hours, maybe a little bit longer. If you want to eat up more of that gluten, you can have it sit for up to even 36 hours. It will change the consistency of the bread. However, as long as it's 8 hours, that's my magic number, then you're ready to go. So the first thing that I do is I've cleaned my surface, and then I'm going to put a little bit of flour on my surface. And from there, I take the cellophane off. And if your bowl is big enough, the bread won't stick to the cellophane. And then I just scoop my hands around the bread as I turn the bowl. And because there's that oil in the bottom of the bowl, it should just come right out. Yeah, so nice and neat. You might have a little bit of extra that you can grab from the bottom to put on your bread ball. And then from there, you're going to just gently kind of pull the bread to make it a little bit almost like a rectangle. This is a process called laminating. I found out through the course of teaching this course that when you stretch your bread out like this, it's called laminating. So anyways, the very next step we're going to do is if you have a proofing basket, which many of you will not have, but if you do, you're just going to get your proofing basket. And I like to put quite a bit of flour in it, not like so much that it's, like too much, but enough to coat it so that when it rises, it can't get stuck on the outer layers. Now, if you don't have this proofing basket, all you're going to do is take a colander and one of those really nice fine tea towels and put that on there. You're going to put a little bit of flour in here. And then from there, you're going to take your dough, fold it over once. You're going to pucker the sides and just kind of squeeze it together like it's a big giant pierogi. Then I flip it over so you can see it's sealed. And then you're just going to gather it in your fingers. So you take the outside and move it inside so that it's all coming together. You can see it's all puckered. And then I roll it. So I roll it not too long, just enough to get some of those bubbles out and get a nice ball of dough. This dough feels really, really good. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the puckered side, flip it, and put it into either your proofing basket or your colander. The next thing I'm going to do is sprinkle a little bit of flour on there. And then I'm going to put some cellophane on top. I just reuse the stuff that I used for the bulk fermentation. And then I put this little bonnet on it. Now, if you're using the colander, like I said, you have your ball in there, you're going to sprinkle a little bit of flour, you're going to put a piece of cellophane over top, and then you'll take another tea towel and put it over top. If you don't have this whole thing here, it's totally fine. You can just use this, put a tea towel over top, and then this is going to sit for another 2 hours. So it sits for another 2 hours on the counter, and then you're ready to bake. So when you're ready to bake the bread, your oven's going to be at 425 for 30 minutes with the lid on your Dutch oven or any kind of container that you have that doesn't have any plastic on it. And then you're going to reduce the heat to 400 and then bake for another 25, 30 minutes, depending on your oven. Because the lid's off, you can watch it. If you're not ready to bake, then there is an alternative. What you could do and what I'm going to do tonight, because it is 25 after 8 for me. So if I let this sit, that's going to be 25 after 10, and then another hour of baking, which means I'm not going to be going to bed until almost midnight, which I don't want to do. So I can do my cold fermentation in the fridge. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put it in the fridge. And then in the morning when I wake up, I'm going to take it out, put it on my counter. From there, I'll turn the oven on, preheat it, heat it. I'll go about my morning routine. And, you know, probably within 30 minutes to 45 minutes, I will put it in the oven and bake it for the hour. So you have a choice if you have the time. So you have to set aside, you know, 3 hours, 2 hours to rise, 1 hour to bake, or you could put it in the fridge. Let it, what happens with the fridge is it slows down the fermentation. So it can sit in there and slowly ferment over in the cold. And then in the morning you can bake it. So I just wanted to show you one other step before you guys bake in the morning or, you know, in the next 2 hours. And that's, I have this wonderful cast iron Dutch oven. I bought it just for bread. You can use these things for everything, but I just use mine for bread. And what I do is I just get a big sheet of parchment paper. And then rather than put it this side, I actually flip it over. And for whatever reason, it just fits to the cast iron container, the Dutch oven, a lot easier. So I push it in and then I flatten out the creases. And then what I would do is just sprinkle a little bit of flour in there. And then when the bread is ready to be baked, I take it out of the colander or out of the proofing basket. And I just like kind of flip it over like that and place it in here. And once it's placed in here, I'm going to cut it with, if you have a razor, this is called scoring. I just do a cross, or you can do your initials, you can do little lines, whatever you want, but you score it because the bread is going to need, like the gases in the bread are going to need to be expelled. And if you don't cut it, you will still get a great bread. It won't be as fluffy. It'll taste a little more sourdough-like, but what happens is the gases are going to burst out themselves. So it's always good to make your own cuts. If you don't have a razor, it's not a big deal. You can just get a sharp knife and cut until you're ready to buy those little tools on Amazon. So that is it. So I've had people bake in cast iron pans like this, in roasting pans, in pots, in Corningware. Like, as long as there's no plastic on your container, you can absolutely bake inside that container. So pretty easy, guys. Reach out if you have any questions. This is a fun process, but it's definitely one where you learn a lot in a short period of time. So I totally understand if there's a step that you've forgotten. Everything is going to be inside your instructions as well, but we're here for you. If you have any questions, just reach out and we will be happy to pass along the answers. All right, have some fun with this and enjoy your bread.